2. Hello, I'm Susan Finch. I'm the Online Marketing Director for the Sales Lead Management Association and the co-host of SLMA Radio. Oh, thank you, Wade. Today I am here with my guest, Wade Perry. He is the Managing Broker at Coldwell Banker, Devonshire in Colorado, and I'm so excited for you to meet him. For more than 20 years, Wade Perry has been assisting people with the most significant investment decisions of their lives. Wade's philosophy is simple. It's not about me. And we can all get what we want first only by helping others get what they want. And these are his guiding principles. Wade has more initials after his name with all the things that he has trained and done that I'm just going to let you meet him because we have some really great questions to ask him today. Wade Perry, I'm so glad that you're here today. Thank you.
Not as glad as I am, Susan.
Thank you. When we decided to have this conversation, we wanted to talk specifically about how lead generation, lead management, lead nurturing, and social media have affected your industry. And I know with the changes since you've become the managing broker at Devonshire, there have been a lot of wonderful positive changes, and you have an amazing team. So I want to hear about these things. Let's tackle the first one first. Tell me about lead generation and how it's changed.
Well, Susan, there are a lot of cliches, if you will, in the sales world. None are more, I'd say, appropriate than that real estate is a contact sport. Start, finish, alpha to omega, this is a contact sport. And I like to actually, tongue-in-cheek, like to call this the original social networking business. Facebook, Tumblr, Pinterest aside, this is the social network. And anybody in real estate that doesn't grasp that, understand it, and embrace it really is going to find themselves on the outside looking in. And at the core of any contact business, if you will, the word lead is part of it. It's not a four-letter word. Technically it is, but you've got to treat it as if, you know what, without them, nothing happens.
Okay, but let's assume that most brokers and agents know this, but what has changed significantly in the last year or two, especially in the last year, in lead generation? It's not like it used to be. You don't, use the same methods.
I would say this really actually began obviously with the advent of the internet, and I'm not going to take you all the way back, to that time for too long.
Thank you.
But if you think about it, and the one thing I'm going to start with is the concept of the open house.
Oh, yes.
20 or 30 years ago, the open house was critical. It was the only way that you, as a buyer, were going to get into that house unless you had an appointment with a realtor. And that was the way it was done. In fact, there was no MLS. It was all contained in a book about the size of the yellow pages. And if you wanted any information, you had to call a realtor. Well, then came the internet. And the MLS, or what we call the magic listing service, was born. And people could, realtors could get the information online. And slowly but surely it started to change. What really changed in the world of the open house was this. Susan, you could go and look at no less than a dozen houses in HDR photography with wide-angle lenses, staged and beautiful, before your coffee's cold, in your jammies, without leaving the comfort of your living room.
And without having to engage an agent I'm not sure I even want to bother with yet.
Correct. And so that world of 20 years ago, where the open house was really the realtor's way to attract a buyer. They already had the listing. Now I want a buyer. And to get the buyer in, we held an open house so they could see it. Well, now, because people can see them all online, the only people who are really coming to an open house are usually the neighbors, because they want to see how nice is it inside.
We do. We take all the flyers. I do know that happens here. It does no good for the sellers.
It reminds me about the flyers, because that's another topic we can talk about with lead generation. So the open house was the way that an agent was able to procure buyers. Now, they still happen that way, but statistics have shown that only 3% of the time does a buyer find the property they end up buying via open house. So, as I say to...
Wait, yes. This has been like this, though, for a few years now.
Oh, yes.
But I think there have been even bigger changes.
Oh, no question.
In the last year.
In terms of lead generation, I still believe that you can use, and this is something we were going to address later in the, but I believe that there's been a lot of distraction and a lot of noise courtesy of technology, where we've had things like you've got to have a Facebook page, you've got to be on Twitter, you've got to be on Pinterest, you have to be on Tumblr, you have to do all of these things, and business will come. Not so true. True as it been. In fact, I would go on record to say that the value of the personal contact, whether it's having coffee with someone, having lunch with someone, having cocktails with someone, a handwritten personal note. I'm sure there's some people on this audience that are wondering what that is. That it's a lost art. That has more value to ever had because of so many realtors who have been, for lack of a better phrase, duped into thinking that if I build all of this technology, they will come. And that is not simply the case. You've got to be out seeing the people, pressing the flesh, letting them know that you are the credible resource for in their marketplace. And it doesn't mean that you go have coffee and you're on a sales call. You're going to catch up on their lives because you genuinely enjoy them as people and want to get to know what's going on in their life. Hopefully, they'd like to know a little bit about what's going on in your life. And that is where the lead happens. It doesn't mean, Susan, that you're going to come away from coffee with me and say, boy, there's so many houses on the market, the interest rates are here, blah, blah, blah. You're not going to remember all the details I tell you in 2 to 3 minutes about the market update. You're just not. But you are going to come away saying, boy, that individual, that realtor, knows more about real estate than I will ever know. And when I need somebody, that's the person I got to call. That can only happen through personal contact. So when I think about how things have changed over the last, say, 18 months to 2 years in the way of lead generation, I would say that realtors have been misguided to think that technology will do it for them. And as a result, the value of the personal contact has gone up even more so.
I think those are fantastic points, and it's what I'm constantly in these conversations with people online, not in person because I don't get to see everybody, but I get in some chats with, video chats with folks, and it is genuinely about building that trust, building the relationships, being a part of the community. If you want to sell things in a community, doggone it, you better get in that community and do something there, because how else, for one thing, are they going to know you? Are they going to trust you? And to know it isn't just about you.
Well, I'll take it to the simplest form.
Okay.
Has anybody ever knocked on your door?
Yes.
To sell something?
Not anymore because I have a sign out, but yes.
Understandable. Let's go back and let's go to pretend.
Okay.
Pretend someone knocks on your door, and they're not selling oranges to send their sports team somewhere, and they're not selling Girl Scout cookies, but they're legitimately going to sell you something. Has it ever happened?
Yes.
Did you buy?
No.
How much were they selling you? Was it a $100 item? Was it a $1,000 item?
I don't even know because I was so apprehensive and didn't like the stranger coming to my door.
And it probably wasn't a big ticket item, was it?
Probably not. In some cases, like, let's make an appointment for your windows. Our guy will be in the area.
Right.
No, I don't trust them.
Let's take it one step further down this dialogue. You're now going to sell your home.
Right.
$250, $500, $750, $1 million. Forget the dollar amount. While it's paramount, and for a lot of people it's their most valuable asset, it's your home. Are you going to trust that to a postcard, to a door knock? Or are you going to trust somebody that you've engaged with, broken bread with, have meaningful dialogue with, have been able to vet them in the way of their references, validate them online, and have a relationship with?
You're right.
That has never changed, and it never will change, in my humble opinion.
I'm with you on that. Okay, you've made some great points. So let's move on to the next thing, though. Let's say we get the lead.
Yeah.
And they come in, and now it's time to, I don't know if you want to call it management or nurturing, but let's take it to the next step and how that has changed with technology and with all the touches we hear about we need to have, so many touches to close the deal. And I know that's valid for a lot of industries, but like you're saying in yours, it is so terribly personal. it isn't like, some of the other things where, oh yeah, I'll buy a car. That's not the same. This is the home.
No.
So in your industry, talk to me about lead nurturing and lead management.
Well, if we get back to the crux of where we began, and that is, it is a contact sport, and the relationship is key to the success of the transaction. And I like to use the analogy of building a house, if you will. Have you ever watched a house being built over time?
Yes.
You ever notice that all of a sudden one day there's a dirt lot, and the next day bulldozers pull up and they start digging, and the next day they're digging, and 3 weeks later they're still digging out a hole, and 2 weeks later they're pouring foundation, and 2 weeks later maybe you have some wrought iron in there, and all of a sudden 3 or 4 months have gone by and all you see is a concrete slab and nothing's happened. Slowly but surely then you start to see the framing, and all of a sudden, bang, in 2 weeks the house is done.
Oh, you know what's more disturbing though to me on that? It always makes me think of it, is when I see the empty lot ready to go, but I don't remember what was there before.
There you go.
I almost wish people would put a sign there and say, oh, this used to be, and now it's going to be.
So we want to see before and after.
Yeah.
Right. That way we can judge, boy, did you do a good job or not on the redo?
Or do I miss that business or that house, or who was that?
Right. So let's think about that for a moment. You spent 3/4 of the time on the foundation, 1/4 of the time actually on the structure. So if I take that same analogy to the real estate relationship, we've got to spend the bulk of our time understanding the client's needs and wants. These needs and wants are going to change. When I first meet with somebody and we go through a list, what's important to you? How many bedrooms? How many bathrooms? How many floors? Do you want to go up and down stairs? Do you want a basement for storage? How important is a fireplace? Here in Colorado, we have cold nights. How important is it, if you want a fireplace, that it be wood burning versus gas? Some people like building a fire. They like the crackle. Some people don't want all the soot. How important is a backyard? How important is it that you don't have any remodel to do? And we'll go through this list of needs and wants, and we'll build what we call the profile, if you will. We'll talk about the dollars. Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. 2 body parts have to be in sync in order for someone to buy a house. The first body part is their gut. And this isn't to sound metaphysical, Susan, but houses talk to people. When they pull up to the curb, they know right away whether they like it or not. If I had a nickel for every time somebody sat in my car and said, I'm not buying this house, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I'd be retired. And I make them go in the house regardless, because I want them to see the size of the kitchen, the size of the master, the size of the closet, and ask them, is this big enough? Is this floor plan appropriate? What do you not like about it? And I tell them the reason for that is that I go and preview homes every week. And when I come into one and I think, gee, this might be good for Susan and Tom, I need to be able to put that filter hat back on and say, yeah, that is, no, that's not. Yes, question?
Well, what I'm wondering, I want you to tell me a story.
Yeah.
Tell me one of your happy ending stories. Somebody that, wasn't sure and then they walked in and they knew. Does anybody come to mind?
Yes. As a matter of fact, this was a lady about 5 or 6 years ago, and she could not afford a lot of a home. She was a single mother. She had 2 boys. She was a dental hygienist, and she could only afford $125,000. Sweet gal. I mean, really a sweet lady. Great mom, young kids. During their first-time homebuyer tax credit days. And because she could only afford $125,000, and because of what had been going on in the marketplace at the time, go back to 2009, lots of foreclosures.
Yeah. Lots
of properties that, quite frankly, are not suitable for human habitation. We went to 138 properties.
Did you go to them? I mean, you showed her 138 properties?
138 properties. So when you asked me for a story, it was real easy for me to find one.
Oh, my.
Sometimes we'd see as many as 200 cigarette butts. smushed out in the carpet. The remains of dogs in the corner. Children's toys and belongings left behind in the dark when they'd been evicted. Really sad, sad stories. And we kept looking and we kept looking. And my mindset was, there's a house for every buyer. And if I don't help her, somebody will. Somebody won't, excuse me. I've got to help this lady. It wasn't until we had been through enough houses that she came to understand that once we found one that was in good condition, didn't have to be fabulous, just had to be in good condition. And the layout, you know what, she wasn't going to get too picky, but the neighborhood had to be safe. As soon as we walked in, and this was priced right at $125,000, and she looked at me. She said, you know what, this is home. I said, why do you say that? She says, I can put a picket fence right there. I've always wanted a picket fence. There's a big yard. My kids are going to go from playing soccer to playing football to you name it. This is where my boys are going to grow up. I see it. And that's an example of when something talks to you. And so that's the first step. It's got to talk to you. That's the gut. The second is the head. When your head hits the pillow at night, is it comfortable writing that check to the bank? Because you shouldn't lay awake being a slave to the house. Now, she wanted to offer $120,000. And I looked at her and I said, we've looked at 138 properties, including this one. And I'm beginning to think that maybe you like looking at properties with me. And you assured me that was not the case anymore. It was at one time. And I asked her point blank, I said, if I were to call you tomorrow and tell you that the property was gone, because this was the first day it was on the market, and somebody outbid you, would you be okay with that? Would you be disappointed, or would you be devastated? And she said, I think I'd probably cry. I said, okay, would you like to think again about how much you're going to offer? Well, we actually offered over list price, took some concessions to help her with closing costs. We ended up getting the property. She's still there today. It's actually a great story. But the difference in the mortgage price to allow her head to sit on the pillow comfortably ended up being about $4 a month difference. Well, let's face it, Susan, that's one trip to Starbucks.
Right.
So the head and the gut have to be right. Period. End of statement. So when it comes to how do you nurture that lead, you've got to take care of what's the foundation of needs and wants. Now, I'm going to warn you, those change because not every house is going to be perfect for the buyer's needs and wants. It may have 8 of the 10 items, but missing 2. So the question becomes, what can I live without? You know, it's got the big backyard, it's got the big kitchen, I love the master walk-in closet, so it's not a wood-burning fireplace, it's gas, I guess we can live with it. Right. Some people will go in thinking, I gotta have a swimming pool, I've always wanted a swimming pool, and then they find out the difference in cost in their property insurance, their liability, and how much they're gonna spend on taking care of it. They don't want a pool anymore. So the foundation starts one way, and it changes and morphs as they become exposed and educated to the realities of the market. So lead nurturing starts with the foundation, learning what's important to them, taking them out, getting them exposed and educating them to the realities, making adjustments on the fly, and sometimes those adjustments could be in price. One such example, just dealing with a couple right now, wonderful couple, have about a 6 to 8 month baby boy. And they really want to be in this one neighborhood, and they want to be in that neighborhood for a certain price, and they can't because, quite frankly, it doesn't exist. We ended up looking at about 6 different neighborhoods in great school districts because that was a priority, and all of a sudden it became a reality to them. The wish list was going to change a little. Well, if you as a realtor, and this actually could apply to almost any sales business, are not in tune with what your client is looking at, because when we look at them at houses, or I should say, when we look at houses with them, excuse me, they're looking at the house. We're looking at them. And they start to see the lights go on, the eyes widen, hey, we could do this, we could do this with this. All of a sudden, they start to realize, this is where I'm going to spend my time. And maybe I need to think about a different neighborhood that I can afford. So when it comes to lead nurturing, a lot of it is the formation of the needs and wants. And then it's a lot of listening of, boy, what's their lifestyle really going to be like? And what clues are they giving me along the way that I can incorporate into their search for the next property that we go out and look at?
Well, the listening factor is so huge. It's huge in sales for any industry. I am told stories every week of reps that don't listen. You can give them 100 clues. You can give them the most valuable information. And yet they send you these links, they send you this information, they try and close you, and they haven't heard a word you've said.
No.
And there is no relationship there. And I mean, you become this gnat in their faces when you have that kind of approach. It's like, just get away, block, spam, anything, just go away.
And it's actually kind of old school like that. And I think that the way technology has really changed things in the last 18 months, to get back to your original question a little bit on lead nurturing, and that is getting to know the people without going through a Larry King interview. Now, people, by and large, are on Twitter. They're on LinkedIn. They're on Facebook. So, for example, I'm working
They're
with
on Google Plus.
Yeah, they're on Google Plus, exactly. Maybe they have their own YouTube channel, right? So I can go and research their background. More times than not, there's a presence somewhere online, and I can find out what part of the country did they grow up in, where did they go to school, how engaged in social media are they? Do they have 1,000 friends, or do they have 50? Was their most recent post 5 months ago, or 5 days ago, or 5 minutes ago? And then I have an idea of how active are they going to be online looking at property. I can
Does this also affect, though, too, when you see that they're engaging more, you have an idea of how they're going to be as far as responsive to you as you're helping them through a process?
That's correct. It also tells me a lot about what mediums they like to communicate through. Maybe they're really good at text. Some people, it's got to be a phone call. So you can pick up a lot of clues about how somebody likes to communicate based on their background, based on their history, that you find online. So lead nurturing, and the more that I can find out about that, sorry to break away, the more that I can find out about them, less time I have to spend learning about that in the car. I can drop little hints from time to time. And I'll even say it jokingly. I say, when I'm not a realtor, when I'm not a dad, when I'm not a coach, I'm actually a stalker, and I went online to find out that you went to this school, and this school. I hope you're okay with that. But I figured we'd cut to the chase, and I'd learn more about you. And they usually start laughing out loud and saying, thank God we're not going to go through 20 questions. And so lead nurturing, I think, the more that they feel that you care, you took the time to learn about them, you took the time to think about things in the property that they may not think of, like steep stairs for a baby, you know what? They start to say, this isn't just somebody who's going to put a sign in the ground and a flyer box and disappear. This is someone who is adeptly in tune with what I'm trying to do. Make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. But I know, we're on a kind of a show schedule. We got to keep going. So we've covered those two things. The last one I want to cover is social media and how it has changed everything for realtors, especially because you aren't printing the keychains anymore. It doesn't do any good. You're not, the door hangers, to me, I'm seeing those as a thing of the past, and some of the other methods. And we've replaced them with electronic methods, but how much more effective are they other than the splatter shot reach, because it's so much easier to reach so many?
Correct. Let me just ask you a quick question.
Okay.
How many keystrokes do you think it would take for you to find a chicken fettuccine recipe, a strawberry shortcake recipe, or the Broncos football schedule for next year? 10. I'm going to go with less than 10. Right. They don't need that. And so where social media has come into play, in my opinion, is that it's not lead generating. In fact, I had a friend of mine at my house for dinner, probably 8-9 weeks ago, one of my best friends in the entire world. He works for a company called Violin Memory. They are a big upstart in cloud memory, et cetera, or cloud storage. And he asked me, point blank, because he's deep into the tech world, and he asked me, so how much business do you get from social media? And I said, 0. And he looked astonished. He said, how can that, what do you mean? And he was kind of, as much as he was deeply ensconced in technology, he was not an early adopter to Facebook because he didn't see how this was going to go. What was this going to do for me? And he wasn't an early adopter to Twitter. He knew what they were. He knew how they worked. He couldn't get all the way home on the connection. Same with Google Plus, same with LinkedIn. And I had to explain to them that social media is not lead generating. And quite frankly, unless you are advertising via social media, I don't think it ever will be. It is lead validating. Susan, if your next door neighbor were to refer you to me, I'm going to guess that the first thing you're going to do after you say thank you, you're probably going to Google me, aren't you?
Definitely. And I'm going to see how current you are in technology, because to me, maybe it's because I'm in tech, but if you aren't current on stuff, I'm going to think you're going to be behind in everything in your industry.
That's exactly right. So if I don't show up on the first page, better yet, if I'm not the first page, you're going to have a little skepticism, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing that was the proof in the pudding, and I don't have the exact numbers on this, I did, but you know, I'm turning 48 soon, so Alzheimer's is starting to kick in. I'm sorry.
You're still younger than me by a few months.
But if you were to Google real estate expert or real estate blog or real estate specialist, I'm going to guess you're going to come up with something in the millions of responses. No one's going to find you that way. Somebody comes to Cherry Creek, right here in the heart of Denver, and types in realtor, Denver, they're probably not going to find me. They're not going to find any of us because they're going to find 47,000 pages of us. Okay. It's lead validating, not lead generating. So then when somebody does type in your name or your company, it should show up on the first page in many different ways. They're going to need to see you on LinkedIn. They're going to need to see you on Twitter, see you on Facebook, and then they're going to go and look, and they're going to want to see, are you dancing on the tables in Cabo? Bad idea.
And you make it all public.
Correct. In fact, there was a great...
This gets back to our lead nurturing thing. As your public face of all that, I mean, I have posts that I make public, and I have a lot that I make just for my friends. But the public ones, what a neat way to reach out without having to be in their inner circles.
Correct. So the first thing I would tell people is understand that it's lead validating. Yes, you need to be there. But do not do this for a month, 3 months, 6 months, or a year. And when you don't get a lead, abandon. Do not. You've got to keep doing this. It takes 10 minutes a day, maybe 20. Do not get sucked into the social media vortex where the next thing you know, you're downloading Candy Crush and it's 3 in the afternoon and you're still in your jammies. Bad idea. 10 to 20 minutes a day. Do it before you get into email. Do it while you're having your coffee. Do not do it at 11 in the morning, at 2 in the afternoon. Stop.
And don't do it just to push your stuff out.
No.
Engage, not just like, not just plus. Don't just do that, but engage.
You have to engage. You have to participate. You have to hit the ball back, as I like to say. And also, keep business business. Keep personal personal. And when I say keep personal personal, show them who you are. But let's not show the table dancing in Cabo. Just saying.
Well, then there are two schools of thought on it. There's some people that are saying, it should all be together and it should all be out there, so you should have the behavior that you shouldn't have to be worrying about if it's all out there.
Correct.
But there are things in my personal life I don't want to share with the world just because it is, maybe it's, hey, we're having problems in the family and, somebody's sick and that. I don't want that out to the public.
No. There are things that, quite frankly, aren't necessary to be there. And so keep business business, keep personal personal. Do not keep track of leads generated. You can't go there. It's a no-win game. It is lead validating. Accept that you need to be there. Keep it in its own little space. It will, let's just say this. The person who is referred to you, number one, they're excited and they're grateful. Your next door neighbor referred you to me. Great. You are feeling eternally grateful because it saved you a ton of time and headache. And boy, my next door neighbor knows me, knows what I like, knows what I'm going to respond to. This should work really well. we're going to go down this path until something tells us we don't like this person. Fair enough. One of the things that's still in the back of yours and Tom's mind is going to be, I value their recommendation, but I'm still not sold. The icing on the cake, all right, the lock on the door is going to be what they see online. And it really gets sealed then when you're in person. So when you finally meet in person, if it validates who they saw online and who they heard from their neighbor, now the relationship is already halfway down the field. So the secret underlying behind this is, don't be somebody online that you're not. Be you. Everybody else is taken. Why would you want to try to be them?
That's
Just
great.
Be genuine, but understand the world's watching. My dad once told me, actually this was the headmaster of my grade school, very, very funny story, and I'd gotten in trouble, and I think it was the trouble, and he said, Wade, I want you to behave for the rest of your life as if your name was printed on your forehead. Pretty good advice. More people should take that advice when it comes to social media.
Well, my sister used to tell me that if you can't shout what you're doing from the mountaintop, you shouldn't be doing it.
Good one.
So pretty much the same. But I know we need to get going, so I want to tell people how to reach you. You can find Wade at wadeperryproperties.com. You can find him on Google+, plus Wade Perry. He is on Twitter. He has 2 accounts. He has Littleton CO, and he has Wade_Perry. So you can find him everywhere. You can find him on LinkedIn because he understands about connecting with people and building relationships. Wade Perry, thank you so much for talking to us on the SLMA Radio Show. You can find us at theslma.com. That's THESLMA.com. And radio is slmaradio.com. Thank you so much, Wade.
Thank you, Susan. One last plug. They can also find me on 9news.com. And just type my name into the search field, and you'll see we broadcast about every week on what's going on in the Denver market, so they can plug in there as well. But Susan, this has been an absolute joy. I can't wait to do it again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wade.